Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom in which we take the time to interview small-cap CEOs and executives about the company's recent press releases. With us today is Andre Costa, President and CEO of Pacific Potash Corp. that trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol PP. For our friends in the U.S., PPOTF, and for our friends on Frankfurt, P9P. Now, Pacific Potash, for those of you who don't know about the company, is engaged in the exploration and development of the Amazonas Basin project and the surrounding potash claims targeting the Middle Amazonas Potash Basin, currently the host to multiple new exploration campaigns for potash. Now, more than just lip service, Pacific Potash is differentiating itself because it's raised millions of dollars in the first half of 2013, which is arguably the most difficult financing environment in the history of the venture exchange, and also has an MOU, that's a Memorandum of Understanding, for potash offtake agreement. Andre, welcome to the show.
Hi, George. I'm glad to be here.
Well, you're coming to us straight from Brazil, so thanks for joining us to talk with us. Let me get to the first question. Can you give us a quick background on your history in the potash industry, your experience in Brazil, and what I'd really like to know, what enticed you to take over as CEO and President of Pacific Potash?
Okay, George. I started my work with potash when I was in Saskatchewan. In Saskatoon, I started working with a consulting company, the North Green Exploration with Steve Halabura. And after that, I went to Saskatchewan Geological, to work with Saskatchewan Geological Survey.
Right.
And in 2008, I was invited to start a new concept program for potash in Brazil. And I spent 5 years developing and being the technical responsible for the drilling and exploration program for Brazil Potash. And I was invited to participate, to be with the Pacific Potash Group. And what enticed me was the opportunity to develop something from the ground up and the potential of the area.
Now, a lot of people don't know this, but you're instrumental in helping Potash Brazil discover its nearby deposit. You're responsible for their entire technical program on the exploration side, and they're now on running towards an NI 4331 compliant resource that's currently being calculated. Are you still working with Potash Brazil, or are you exclusive with Pacific Potash now?
No, I'm not working for Brazil Potash anymore, and now I am 100% with Pacific Potash.
Right, so can I take that as a real support for what you think Pacific Potash has in terms of future potential of this deposit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or of this project?
Yeah,
go on.
No, yes, the project is really good. And the potential, and that's why I'm working. I'm exclusive with Pacific Potash in order to focus only on this exploration program and to get results as soon as possible.
Now, let's talk about that. Pacific Potash is in the Amazonas Basin. We've said that. A basin that a lot of people are comparing to the Potash Basin in Saskatchewan. You've got people like Potash Brazil and Petrobras with assets already there. How was Pacific Potash able to get the rights to explore in such a world-renowned potash district so early in this region's development?
Yes, George, what happened was the deposits were discovered in late 70s, early 80s, and by Petrobras. And after that, it was basically forgotten because of the difficulty to access the area at that time, and also the potash price. The demand wasn't that high. In mid-2000, with the increase of the potash prices and increase in demand, Petrobras tried to tender that area. And at that time, Falcon Metais, which was formerly Brazil Potash, they applied for the tender and won. And that tender was canceled by the government for future analysis. And that's what caught attention of the other junior companies. And in late 2008, they also started staking in the area. Among them was Potash Ocidental, which is now a subsidiary of Pacific Potash.
How far away from Potash Brazil's deposit, again, the one that you helped discover, how far is it from Pacific's lands claims in the basin?
Yeah, that deposit is about 70 kilometers from to the east, but it is also 45 kilometers from the Arari deposit, which was discovered by Petrobras in the 70s.
You consider that to be relatively close in terms of that basin?
Oh yes, it is. Because if you take the size of the deposits, they are about 10 to 15 kilometers in wide, like the diameter of the deposits. And between them you have a space of 10, sometimes 20 kilometers. And it is really, really close because the entire basin has more than 400 kilometers.
Now, we're at early stage for Pacific Potash, but what similarities are you seeing in Pacific Potash's land claims that you might have seen for Potash Brazil in the early days?
Yeah, because they are on the same trend, and what we look is for calmer areas that are not structurally affected. They are flatter areas, and Pacific Potash areas, it is on trend of Petrobras and the Brazil Potash claims, which any of them resulted in the discovery of a deposit, and we are on trend of those.
Now, this is a pretty big land package, if we understand. How are you going to determine where the company is going to conduct its first drill program? Is that a really big task, or does your expertise from Potash Brazil really make that a lot easier than for most people that would find their way into the area?
Yes, during the last 5 years, I acquired lots of familiarity with the basin, and that allowed me to quickly see and define the areas where, based on geological merit. And also we have to take into account the accessibility merit. We have to be accessible for the first target, and also the structural, which I mentioned, we look for flatter area on trend of those known deposits. And yeah, go ahead.
How are you doing now as far as making that assessment? Where are you right now?
And right now we are just finishing the analysis of the historical seismic survey that they have in the area. And the target it is already defined. It's just the final location where to drill. We are just using the seismic to define those locations.
Now, just so that this interview isn't too easy, I've got to ask, and I'm sure a lot of people at home are thinking, what are the main challenges faced when drilling for potash, specifically in the Amazonas basin? Because it can't be all that easy. So what are some of the main challenges you may be facing?
Yeah, it is not an easy task because we have to plan ahead. Logistics is the most, I think, the bigger challenge drilling in the Amazon. And you have to plan ahead, you have to have replacement tools, you have to have spare rods, spare engines, because if something goes wrong, it may take 15 to 20 days to bring a new one into the drill site. So we have to plan ahead. Logistics is the most challenging thing in drilling in the Amazon.
And on the back of logistics is infrastructure. How do you rate the infrastructure in the Amazonas basin in terms of getting equipment in and out, access to power, and all the important things that you need for a project like this?
Yeah, interestingly, because although we have the logistic problem, but infrastructure on Amazon terms, you have a big city, 150 kilometers, which is Manaus. It is a 2 million inhabitants city where you can find most of the material that you need. The only problem is you have to use the rivers, the big rivers, to transport, to barge the equipment to the drill site. And sometimes if something has to come from São Paulo or Rio, you have to barge from Belém, which is a long trip. That's why it may take 15 to 20 kilometers. But in terms of power and is everything well developed in the area? It's not a big issue.
You also have another factor, which is if the local people are watching Brazil playing soccer, you can't get anything.
Yeah, that's another thing. But this is something that will happen only in 2014, and I hope to have a deposit by then. Who knows?
Oh, I like the sounds of that. I'm sure a lot of people like the sounds of that. I'm going to end off with this, because you're such an expert in potash. You started off in Saskatchewan, now your specialty is in Brazil. Tell me about the demand drivers for potash and how you see the future for demand of potash, both in Brazil and internationally, because I'm sure that played a big role in your decision to take over the lead at Pacific Potash.
Oh yes, definitely. Although we have, if we take Canada and Russia, you would have 80% of the global reserves for potash in the world. But the problem is, it is such a strategic commodity that you can't rely only on 2 or 3 countries to be your supplier of that commodity. Mm-hmm. And all the other nations are now investing and supporting the potash exploration because it's strategically important, and also the demand also is growing because you can manage, try to live without some iron or some other metals. But potash is crucial for food, and we cannot live without it.
Andre, I want to really thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you've got a lot to do in Brazil. You've got a big job ahead of you now as a new president CEO. Mm-hmm. Thanks for this interview. I hope to have you back on in the next 45 to 60 days at most as you continue moving towards your first bit of exploration there. And I'll leave any last words with you before we sign off.
Okay, thank you very much, George, and my pleasure participating in this interview.
You've been watching Andre Costa, the new President CEO of Pacific Potash Corp. that trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol PP. Go to pacificpotash.com for more information, or find your way over to Agoracom where you can talk with other shareholders and compare notes about the company. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.